So our first speaker is Dr. Shahbaz, a political scientist who earned his PhD from the Diplomatic Academy of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation.
So let me just start, and the English is the second foreign language of me, so I will make some mistakes, please forgive me. I guess the paper will be published and you will find my research in deep on the written paper. So I will just make a short presentation of the third output of our ongoing research project in working over the primary data of Lithuanian archives, Trudy Vyššej Školy, works of higher school. This is, I would say, a different journal from the Sborniki, because in the Sborniki journals, actually, the former KGB officers, they shared their own experience from the regional parts. They, of course, are so important, but they don't mean too much for the theory, for the doctrinal evaluations. But in the journals of Trudy Vyššej Školy, we see their hardcore theoretical discussions, development of notions, development of theories. What we have found for our first article, you see the basic findings. We have already developed them in the body of an article, which is also about 15,000 words, but it deserves to be published, I guess. We haven't decided yet where to publish, but we will do, definitely. If we can, of course, write the last part, conclusion part. So this is the how is called intelligence science in the traditional or contemporary Russian science educations. Those are the headlines, and there are enough material to work over them. So I also invite other colleagues who would like to work, or you can join to our research group. It's a self-funded research group in Turkey. We are working over Russian intelligence science and theory. So the theme of my presentation today is from ideological subversion to information confrontation, the doctrinal evolution of Russian active measures. What I will do, I will make a short overview through theoretical context of ideological subversion. I will try to share some definitions, and I will try to show you interrelations of the term with the theory of ensuring and protecting state security. And I will try to show some interrelations of the term with the struggle methods, of course in the theory, interrelations of term with the operational intelligence environment concept. And then I will have a short overview on the struggle against ideological subversion, of course, against theoretically. I will try to show how the struggle activities were developed and doctrinated, and share the data of some scientific works conducted on ideological subversion, and talk on cognitive, transformative, and supportive activities. So when we are talking about ideological subversion, actually, Mr. Krieger, maybe you may remember, yesterday he was mentioning a lot that he was young. Actually, ideological subversion is not ideological war, is not psychological war. Ideological subversion is not also ideological struggle. It's totally politicized category in Russian intelligence theory, and it is one of the forms of subversive activity conducted by intelligence and secret services of imperialist states. These activities are carried out through ideology, propaganda centers in the form of agitation, propaganda, or intelligence organization actions. So, how this and when exactly this term emerged, notion emerged? We don't exactly know when it emerged in the theory. There are, of course, different approaches, and one of them is, I will share right now, sorry. Roy Medvedev and Dmitry Yermakov, they claim that the Communist Party's secretary, Mikhail Suslov, had the largest role in introducing this concept. Until 1970s, the terms like ideological aggression, psychological warfare, psychological subversion or sabotage, ideological war, war of ideas, war of words were used synonymally with the ideological subversion. This conceptual issue was largely resolved during the university stage of Russian intelligence school. So we can define three stages of Russian intelligence theory, development of Russian intelligence theory: empirical knowledge phase, university stage, and the ideologization stage. Of course, the evolution of the ideological subversion concept reflects the principle that in intelligence work, practice precedes theory. Intelligence practices necessitate theoretical development, and theoretical work helps practice by processing empirical knowledge, revealing internal relations, and conceptualizing the guide and increase effectiveness. This practical necessity explains why the KGB's Fifth Directorate, responsible for combating ideological subversion, was established in 1967. But the dedicated Special Department 5 for the ideological subversion research at Dzerzhinsky High School was not formed until 1972. This is very important, I guess. First, we see the practice, and then we see the development of theoretical and notional base in the Russian intelligence theory. So this 5 years gap, actually, I will just show, this is the whole outputs in the forms of articles, PhD dissertations, textbooks, collections of articles, monograph lectures. How do we have these numbers? Actually, during our research, we just took the all bibliography part of the articles and from textbooks. We saved them in an Excel file and then start to classify them by the principle of content itself, timelines, and proportions, of course. But as you can see, the proportion of the works on theme of ideological subversion, if you look to the whole picture, is just 10% of the theory. So it might tell us something as well, because, of course, this is conditional finding, but the most seen and the most representative part of the intelligence practices, but in the theoretical development, we just have the 10% of this. The 90% of the works, they are forwarded to other parts of the intelligence theory and other research stuff. So, of course, the research conducted in KGB universities, especially in the Dzerzhinsky High School, as they are, we can classify them for the operative lines. Yeah, so basically scientific works, and those are for the Dzerzhinsky itself, Dzerzhinsky High School itself. But the Zionism takes the first place. The religion is the second place. And then we go nationalism, the Ukrainian nationalism. They were so crazy about it. Terrorism, anti-Soviet anonymous documents, immigrant organizations, foreign ideological subversion centers, cultural exchange, media, analytics, and so on. So this is just the total quantity of output by the divisions. So we see this for the trends, scientific outputs by year, and especially the articles and their classification was so impressive for me when I saw the final picture, because 74 articles. Well, I have already worked all of them. So of course, scientific works here have the 50% of the whole, more than 50% of the whole works. And again, Zionism is on the second place, nationalism, religion, Yaut, and this is just going on. So just shortly, I will say I will share with you the definitional part, and I will finalize my presentation. Yeah, because I took too much time. So well, just ask questions, and I will try to answer them as well. Mike. So what is exactly the ideological subversion? This is actually the Sidorenko. They are is their Colonel Sidorenko. It is the co-author of the first textbook with Philip Babkov. He was the director of fifth department of KGB, which was responsible for the fight against ideological subversion. He emphasizes that ideological subversion manifests in two primary forms, how it emerges, right? It is destructive propaganda and organized destructive anti-Soviet activities. Propaganda we already know, but the destructive anti-Soviet activities, which is pretty important because the actions intended to provide necessary tools by establishing and cooperating with illegal opposition groups, inciting them to destructive actions against the socialist order. This approach created another notion, negative processes, which are not representing a national security threat at this moment, but have got the potential in the future. So as fast as possible, you must overcome from that threats. How they fight against ideological subversion, which were the activity lines and so on, they will all be in our paperwork. Just finally, I would like to say ideological subversion, ideological sabotage, or in the today's world, with the today's words, that information confrontations and all of that stuff, it is not only the simple repressive tool against dissidents or opposition. What I wanted to say, all of those mechanisms were produced by a system, and it was an industry. It was not just a machine. So when they ideologized the apparatus itself, from communism to I don't know what, capitalism or not capitalism, we just took the color of ideology. But the machine still functions and works very well. And if the machine works, so just don't stop it. I guess the Czechistocracy today in Russia will also produce more and more, reproduce more and more the old stuff in the 21st century's conditions. Thank you very much for your patience.
Moving on to Dr. Ofek Rima, who received his PhD from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem for work on public intelligence disclosure in IR, which received the Israeli Political Science Association Award for Best Dissertation. He's the founder of the Israeli Forum for Intelligence Studies and now a lecturer at Ben Gurion University.
So I'll be presenting today work with Professor Eli Poder from the History Department at the Hebrew University on the effectiveness of coercive intelligence disclosure over the case of Israel versus the German scientists in Egypt. Well, actually, the title is supposed to be Israel versus West Germany over German scientists' involvement in Egypt's missile project, but I thought that this would be too long of a title. Starting, we're all witnessing the ubiquity of states' public use of intelligence as a tool of foreign policy making. And scholarship is also following suit, so we now know quite a lot about the underlying reasons for why states are incentivized to publish their intelligence, the systemic reasons, the political reasons, of course, and some of the strategic reasons as well. We also know quite a bit about why or how, states do it, the nuances of authorized leaks, unauthorized leaks, the fact that it can be an episodic disclosure or an ongoing, a campaign sort of disclosure, and the sorts. And we also know about the purposes or what states hope to achieve by disclosing intelligence, so mainly building resilience, generating legitimacy for action, and perhaps most importantly, at least the way I see it, using the publication of intelligence for coercion. So to manipulate the behavior of other and the calculations of other states. What we know fairly little about is the effectiveness. How do we assess the effectiveness of this strategy? So this is what we sought out to do in this paper, and we wanted specifically to test the effectiveness, to say something about the effectiveness of public disclosure of intelligence for coercion. And for this reason, we chose a historical case study, so to have this kind of a historical perspective, which will give us more insight as to how the publication of intelligence eventually made or did not make a difference. So the case we chose was the Israeli campaign of publication of intelligence on German scientists' involvement in Egypt's missile project, which culminated between March 17 and March 31st of 1963. Now, this episode in the literature was referred in various ways by different authors. So, for example, Danny Orbach, a historian, called it a one-man's obsession, the man being Isser Harel, the head of Mossad at that time. So, seeing it as his obsession, or Ronen Bergman, who in his book Rise and Kill First described it as political subterfuge. So, Isser Harel and his political ally, Foreign Minister Golda Meir, who both were opposing or against Ben Gurion's rapprochement to Germany. So the idea of another Germany, of a different Germany that Ben Gurion tried to push, and others referring to it as a PR spin, so diverting attention, global attention from Mossad's failures in pursuing this goal of preventing the scientists from working in Egypt, or as a broader idea of propaganda to justify Israel's own nuclear ambitions. Now, what we want to do here, we have two goals. So one historical goal, we try to focus attention on this particular part of what was dubbed Operation Damocles, and framing it as a strategic, coercive campaign, so a deliberate, calculated move by the Israeli government. And also theoretically, we try to advance the discussion about the effectiveness of this practice, particularly of information operations, and particularly of the use of intelligence. So a little bit of a historical background. So on July 21st, 1962, Egypt tested two missiles, Qahar and Zafir, and this caused massive public alarm in Israel. Mossad, which was already monitoring the activity of the scientists in Egypt, was able to obtain a document, internal correspondence, that spoke to Egyptians' intention to produce 900 of these two types of missiles. And then Israel dispatched two envoys, so one to West Germany and another to the US. It's not, I think, by coincidence that in August 1962, Israel and the US signed the first arms deal, strategic arms deal. So the US provided Israel with air defense system for the first time. And but the German dispatch did not have yield much result. So Adenauer just said that this should be kept quiet. He wrote on the message from Israel, this should be kept quiet, but did not do much. And then in September, Israel started to carry out what was known to be called as Operation Damocles, so a series of covert operations against the German scientists, both in Germany and Switzerland and in Egypt, which the objectives were collecting information, but also attempts at assassination and intimidation. So at the end of February 1962, there was a failed assassination attempt on one of the scientists in south of Germany. And then in the beginning of March, after this failed, they tried to intimidate the daughter of one of the scientists who was in Egypt. And then they were ambushed by Swiss police, and the two agents, one Austrian who collaborated with Mossad and one Israeli, were arrested by the Swiss police. This was made public knowledge in March 15, when the arrests were published, and then Isser Ariel, again the head of Mossad, convinced Golda Meir as foreign minister, and there are arguments whether he was able to convince Ben Gurion on that, who was then on vacation. He was already an aging prime minister, quite ill, and he was on vacation. So there are debates whether he was able to gain his permission. But what Ariel said, we have no choice but to publish why we did it, to give the context of why we did this. So he convened the newspaper's editors, and in particular, he briefed 3 Israeli reporters of the main newspapers then in Israel and gave them some leads to pursue their own kind of independent inquiries in Europe based on the intelligence provided by Israel, so they could send back their articles to Israel and publish it in Israeli media. And this was obviously amplified also so the foreign ministry also carried out briefings with international media news editors and so on. And to his man in Paris, he wrote, "This must stay on the agenda of the press and public opinion until we achieve our goal." And then he specifies that the goal is to foil German plots against us, etc. And then Israeli and international media started really amplifying these messages, publishing them, and publishing details on German scientists' work into the development of WMD. So what Israel believed would be put on the warheads of these ballistic missiles tested earlier by Egypt. So work on gas and bacteriological weapons and chemical weapons, and of course nuclear weapons. Simultaneously, senior officials in Israel threatened to publish a full report with hard evidence on what Israel knows in the form of a white paper. And Golda Meir, in a very fiery speech at the Knesset, public speech at the Knesset, demanded West Germany to take all legal and other measures necessary to prevent the German scientists from working in Egypt. And there was this linkage that we will publish what we know based on whether or not the German government acts, the West German government, of course. However, US State Department, Germany, and also Egypt itself denied work on WMD and said that this could not be possible given the expertise, the knowledge, and the capabilities that were at the time in Egypt and available to these scientists. However, Germany was pushed a bit and eventually agreed to consider legal and other measures under pressure from domestic public opinion, but mainly from the opposition, the SPD at the time. However, Ben-Gurion was already quite alarmed by this public campaign, which put a strain on Israel's overall strategic relations with West Germany, which included obviously economic assistance and military assistance to Israel. And he came back from his vacation on March 25th, regained control from the Mossad, asked the military intelligence to provide their own estimate, was given their estimate that this is not quite as it was portrayed in the media. Harel saw it as a show of distrust in him and his policy, and he resigned. And the rift within the Israeli government were quite already surfaced also in the media, thereby reducing Israel's coercive leverage and effectively putting an end to this campaign. All right. So, Israeli exposures moved from what, using Stambnitsky's terminology, moved from exposure to revelation. So the idea that new information is now available and requires some sort of political action. Also, according to Nemo's breakout scale of assessing the success of information operations, this reached the highest level of, I think, 6th stage or 7th stage of policy response. This prompted policy responses in West Germany, in the US, but was it successful? And that's the question we're asking. So in Germany, what we saw was underachievement. So public opinion and opposition gradually pushed the government towards the Israeli position, but it was not enough to meet the requirements of the Israeli government. The legal discussions into changes in the constitution, specifically Israel demanded that West Germany revoke the passports of the scientists, and West Germany said that this is not possible legally. So they put it into legal discussions, which carried on well into the 64 and I think also 65, and nothing came to fruition. In the US, we saw overachievement. So while the administration was not really convinced by Israeli intelligence, it did leverage it to push for a non-proliferation initiative in the Middle East, presenting Nasser with Israeli concerns, trying to convince him to buy into this non-proliferation initiative, which not really work out eventually. And in Israel, what we saw was a backfire, a serious backfire. So the revelations obviously generated anti-German sentiment, fueled them in the public and against Ben-Gurion's policy of mending fences with the Germans. And this led, as I said, to Harel's resignation. However, there was also a ministerial committee put to examine Israeli conduct of the affair. And a few weeks later, Ben-Gurion offered his final ultimate resignation as prime minister over yet another minor issue concerning these relations. So to conclude, first of all, what we see is that similar to the threat to or the use of force, intelligence disclosure can be leveraged to coerce other actors. However, unlike military force, intelligence is a specific type of information, is what we call fungible, and therefore can be mis or reinterpreted and reused by different actors with different meta-narratives, political cultures, and strategic interests, and therefore can lead to unanticipated consequences. Thank you very much.
So our final speaker, Dr. Nizio, from the university, I'm going to horribly mispronounce this, Jagiellonian University, close enough, here in Poland. An assistant professor in the Department of National Security, also teaches at the University in Krakow here. His research focuses on the political history of Central and Eastern Europe and internal security issues.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here. In my presentation entitled Disposable Spies, a proposal for a model, I argued that due to recent changes in the field of espionage, we need some new vocabulary, we need some new terms. We need a new term to capture the very essence of a specific type of espionage that Russia has been carried out effectively since 2022. Not only Russia, but also Belarus, its proxy actor. And my presentation is structured as follows. First, I will outline my starting point in developing this research project. Second, I will discuss the genesis of the phenomenon in question. Third, I will present the main purposes behind activity which I call DS type. DS stands for disposable spies. And fourth, I will examine the primary advantages of utilizing this form of espionage. And finally, I will speculate on the methods for combating disposable spies. So the starting point. In my research, I keep track of espionage cases in the Central and Eastern Europe. Behind me, you can see a part of my research. The graph illustrates the scale of espionage cases in Poland after the collapse of the Iron Curtain, but before the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Please note that the graph illustrates solely the cases that ended with someone being charged with espionage. So no official data on this issue was ever presented by Polish authorities, so this is solely my calculation and my estimation. So the number, which is 34, is not necessarily the whole number, but close enough. It gives us a picture. So in 2022, I started to update my database concerning espionage in Poland and in other countries in the region of Central and Eastern Europe. And this is the result when it comes to Poland. Let's take a look at 2022 and see what happens. Now let's take a look at 2023. And now 24. And now 25. Not yet. And this is it. As of today, most recent addition last week. Numbers are as follows. In 2019-2021, approximately 34 individuals were charged in Poland with various forms of espionage activity, whereas in 22-25, 67 individuals. And this number, 67, these are official data. However, I was able to track down only 57 individuals. So similar increases have been recorded in other countries of Central and Eastern Europe, and there are, of course, many cases in Western Europe as well. 2 days ago, another case in France has been reported. So the natural next step was to examine the characteristics of these cases, and what I have found are striking similarities between cases from Poland, the Baltic states, the Czech Republic, and other countries. Similarities such as simple or very simple assigned tasks, amateur nature of individuals involved, recruitment and tasking being carried out through the internet, specifically the Telegram application, and very simple motivations of individuals involved. Mainly the motivation was financial gratification. So I am talking about activities such as vandalizing monuments, starting a fire, making graffiti, spreading disinformation, or installing cameras. So very simple forms of espionage or espionage-like activities. So the result of my research was published recently in the Security Journal. Here is a short link you can easily copy, and it allows you to access the article in full, which is behind the paywall. So, which I encourage you to do so, and for which I will be very, very grateful if you would do it. So when I started to prepare the article, I gathered about 40 cases as of 2024. And as of now, I have gathered some information concerning around 100 cases all around Europe. And recently, Foreign Intelligence Service of Ukraine calculated in October this this year that 130 people in 12 European countries have been suspected of working for Russia. So I have 100 cases. So my database is not bad, but it also includes Belarus. So it's not complete. And not all of those individuals, of course, can be categorized as disposable spies. For example, in Poland, out of these 57 cases I have gathered, I have certainly classified 21 as such. And with some degree of confidence, I can claim that 25 of them were involved in what I called DS-type activity. So there may be more, but since my access to data is limited due to the fact that there are many investigations ongoing, we have to keep in mind that the scale is probably higher. And before I proceed, I must address a crucial question. Is this phenomenon, which I claim to be new, actually new? So I think that due to the scale and the systemic nature, it is. And I think that it is a part of a broader strategy, which in my opinion stems directly from Russia's new national security strategy, which was adopted shortly before the full-scale invasion of 2022. But of course, it is true that elements of this kind of phenomena have been observed for many years, and not only during the Cold War era, but even in ancient times, there were attempts to instrumentalize criminals in intelligence endeavors. And the history of intelligence includes countless examples of employing mercenaries or various people for hire to do the dirty work. However, I maintain that this phenomenon is as new as anything can be in the social world. So typically new phenomena are some version or hybrid of something that existed before. So please keep in mind that I do not claim by any means that this is the new continent that I have discovered. This is simply me trying to capture the essence of a very specific version of espionage. And I am not alone. There are other proposals for the new term. You can see them behind me. Some of them are being used by intelligence services as well, such as German low-level Agenten or Telegram agents in the Baltic states and in the Czech Republic. And so I think that it proves that there is something going on when researchers representing various countries and intelligence services representing various countries at the same time, separately from each other, start looking for some new term to describe specific version of espionage activity. That means that something indeed has changed and we need new vocabulary. So this brings me to the genesis of the phenomena called disposable spies. I believe that there are at least 5 factors that contributed to creating this new phenomenon. First, the diplomatic presence of Russia in Europe after 2022 has been significantly limited. I estimate that about 800 people working in diplomatic personnel have been expelled from various European countries after 2022. Not only that, but many posts were closed. Like, for example, in Poland, we have closed 2 of Russia's consulates, and currently we are in the process of closing the 3rd one, the last one. So after that, only Russia's embassy will remain on the Polish soil. And so that, of course, limits the scope of organizing conventional intelligence cells and conducting intelligence operations. Second, the development of intelligence cooperation has made it increasingly challenging to conduct conventional espionage. The third thing, I believe that we have to take a look at the rising presence of military apparatus in NATO's eastern flank. I'm talking about the presence of American soldiers. For example, currently there are about 10,000 American troops on the Polish soil. And wherever American soldiers are present, American intelligence services operate as well, which results in strengthening of counterintelligence measures in the region. So fourth, there have been advancements in communication interception technologies, not only in bulk interception, but also in capabilities such as remotely accessing someone's hardware. So what I'm saying is that it is becoming increasingly difficult to be a sophisticated spy. And so fifth, online communication has been increasingly radicalized in recent years with the widespread dissemination of conspiracy theories. And many places, groups or chat rooms serve as gathering point for people frustrated by various reasons. So that means that you don't need to actively search for them. They are readily accessible and can be recruited and used. Okay, so let's move to the next part, the main purposes behind disposable spies. And first, it is a way of testing the rapidness and quality of state's response. So basically, it is just a tool to check our capabilities of countering this threat. Second, it is a method to overwhelm the security apparatus with work, most notably domestic intelligence agencies and specialized units within prosecutors' offices. In other words, it is designed to prevent those parts of the state from catching their breath, because they are always working on another cases. And thirdly, this type of activity should not be regarded as an alternative to, let's call it, conventional espionage, but rather as a complement to it. By attracting attention and engaging state's apparatus, it opens the door for another types of espionage, like more conventional agents or illegals can easily operate due to this distraction caused by disposable spies. Thirdly, this type of activity should be considered as a way of creating chaos and creating disinformation. I claim that the success of a specific operation, for example, an attempt to set a building on fire, is not the primary objective. The aim is to create rumor, is to create chaos, is to create tension in the society. If the operation of setting something on fire succeeds, then great. But if it fails and the individual is apprehended, the fundamental effect is still achieved. So it is worth emphasizing that these operations usually fail, primarily because the perpetrators are complete amateurs. They have no idea what they are doing, and that doesn't matter. And I believe that this method is also connected with psychological warfare. It can be treated as a mean to conduct psychological warfare. It is obvious when we consider those who are recruited for activities which I call disposable spies. Often national minorities, especially Ukrainians, are being recruited by Russia and Belarus to conduct this type of operations, which enables Russia to spread anti-Ukrainian sentiment and drive a wedge between Europeans and Ukrainian diaspora. For example, in Poland, out of those 57 cases I've mentioned, Ukrainians constitute by far the largest group. Therefore, even if we apprehend them, Russia still benefits by promoting the narrative that Ukrainians are conducting the acts of sabotage. In reality, it is Russia or Belarus that is orchestrating the sabotage, using some Ukrainians as pawns in their game. So next, I believe there are 6 main advantages for utilizing this method. First, the cost factor is completely minimized because recruiting someone for this type of work, conducting various forms of arsoning or preparing a graffiti, vandalizing memorials incurs virtually no expenses. Second, the time factor is completely minimized. Individuals recruited for this type of operations can start them right away. They do not require any training whatsoever. Third, no professional equipment is needed. What for? All the necessary tools can be purchased online. Anyone can prepare a Molotov cocktail. It's not a big thing. Third, the risk associated with doubling are completely mitigated. We apprehend disposable spies quite easily, and so what? No valuable data can be obtained from apprehended subjects because they don't know anything about the strategic level of the operations they are involved in. They are often useless, completely useless from the counterintelligence perspective. Fifth, this method provides the country employing it with convenient, plausible deniability. There is no way to identify the handler, as there are many layers to this thing. For all we know, those Telegram handlers are not necessarily intelligence officers as well, and even if they are safely located in Russia or Belarus. We will never catch them. 6, these types of activities generate something what I called multiplication effect. Whenever a malfunction occurs, like for example in public transportation, people will speculate or assume that Russia or Belarus is behind it. And the final point is that the recruitment pool for this type of activity is virtually limitless. You don't need to seek for individuals with specific set of skills or knowledge. Anyone will suffice. So the last thing is how to combat disposable spies. First, I believe it is essential to invest in intelligence apparatus. It is essential to expand counterintelligence units of the Central and Eastern Europe countries, both in terms of personnel and infrastructure. Second, it is important to further development of to conduct further development of cooperation mechanisms in the field of intelligence. Third, we need to have programs oriented towards prevention, and that means involving the general public. I am talking about educational campaigns, systems of training for public institutions, and being active in social media, for example. And fourth, effectively combating disposable spies requires a comprehensive review of legal provisions concerning the service's powers and also the criminal law. And this process is already underway across the board in many European countries. And I leave you with this question at the very bottom. Should Europe respond in kind? We have the tools, we have the knowledge, we could do it, but should we? This is a separate topic altogether and a very controversial one for various reasons, moral, legal, etc. And I would like to conclude by encouraging you to ponder if the concept of disposable spies seems useful to you, and I would appreciate your feedback. I look forward to hearing from you, and I am very easily recruited to scientific collaboration. Thank you very much.